Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blackout Brandon.
I'm your other co-host, JD.
And today, with the Bunker Buddies, we're going to be doing a podcast. We're going to be talking about the recent true crime that's been happening, the quadruple homicide in Idaho.
Yeah, the Idaho Murders. So we're actually going to break this down. It's a little different than what we usually do. I'm actually really excited about it because we've been following this for quite some time now. So as you can see behind us, we've had this board up behind me for a while now. This murder has been ongoing. It started back November 13th. We have, I'm going to move this with me. We have our four victims, Ethan, Madison, Xana, and Kaylee. We're going to start out on the day before. I actually have my timeline printed out in front of me.
And I've got it on the computer as well as we have a little bit of a mini timeline up here on the map right here.
Yeah, so we're going to break down everything on here. I want to go off of what I have right now. But we're going to start November 12th. The last Instagram picture. It's going to be this one that I have posted up right here behind me. This was captioned as "one lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." I believe this was Instagram post done by Kaylee.
All right.
That night, we had Madison and Kaylee hung out at a corner club at a downtown bar on 202 North Main Street, which I should have posted over here.
202 North Main Street. The corner club up here.
Yeah, corner club right up there. Well, the other two went to a party together at the Sigma Chi House at 735 Nez Perse Drive on campus.
That's somewhere right over here.
Yeah. So it should be, yeah. So I kind of have, it's right there. You can see where I have a little mark right there. That little, right where your fingers are at.
Okay. And then the other place they're at is right over here.
Yeah, it'll tell you. But so that's kind of where we are that night. Okay, that is where we are that night. Kind of a timeline of where everybody is. On November 13th, Madison and Kaylee were captured on a Twitch live stream at 1:41 at a grub truck in downtown, where they ordered carbonara and chatted with people nearby. There was a surveillance video that police did obtain and edit and actually pick up some of the audio that was being talked to. One of the girls did say F you to somebody, so there was a little argument that ensued there. They did, however, rule out those people as suspects.
And that is right in line to the residence. They're going to be basically going all the way down Main Street on the way to the residence.
Yes. A sorority driver service got them home at about 1:56, according to police and family. Chapin and Conodal, so that would be Ethan and Xana, returned home at about 1:45. The two female roommates who survived the attack returned home from their night out at 1 a.m. and didn't wake up until late the next morning. So the two roommates that did survive were down here on our first floor. They told Insider Edition that her sister Kaylee called her ex-boyfriend Jack 7 times between 2:26 and 2:44. Police have cleared the ex-boyfriend as a suspect as well. The reason that this is important, this is also what establishes a timeline for police when we're looking at this. And this is really important because this tells me that they got home 1:45. They were still active.
At least a couple of people in the house were still active until almost 3 o'clock.
Yeah. The 4 victims were stabbed to death with a fixed blade knife between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. on the second and third floors of the home, according to police. The murder weapon was not recovered. What they're assuming the murder weapon would be is a K-bar style knife.
Some sort of large hunting or military style knife with a crossbar.
Yeah.
Right here.
We don't know much about that, but that's kind of what we have been told. The surviving roommates summoned friends to the house because they believed one of the second floor victims had passed out.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we know, on the second floor, we have Ethan and Xana, and on the third floor we had Kaylee and Madison. So I actually have a press release that was released from the city of Moscow on November 13th, 2022 at 11:58. Moscow Police Department officers responded to a call on King Road for an unconscious individual. Upon arrival, officers discovered 4 individuals were deceased. They go on to name the 4 individuals. The Moscow Police Department and the city of Moscow is deeply saddened for the families of these individuals, fellow students, and friends, and our community during this time. Our heartfelt sympathies go out to each and every person affected by this incident. Details are limited in this investigation. Currently, there is nobody in custody. Investigators are asking anyone with information related to this incident to contact Moscow Police. They provide their phone number. The Moscow Police does not believe there is an ongoing community risk based on information gathered during the first initial investigation. So this was their first release that they did the day of.
That was Monday, November 14th, or was that Sunday, November 13th?
Sunday 13th.
Got it.
So a call to 911 was placed from one of the surviving roommates' phones at 11:58 a.m. from inside the residence, reporting an unconscious person. Police said multiple people spoke to dispatcher. So this is what we talked about. The 2 surviving roommates invited some friends over thinking that one was unconscious.
Yep.
And then they called multiple people who were in the house, did speak to dispatch. Upon police arrival, they did find all 4 deceased. Monday, November 14th, this is conflicting accounts. Moscow mayor told a news outlet that the slayings were a crime of passion before backtracking in a statement on Fox News Digital, saying that this was one of several potential motives being probed by investigators. So this is something that in a small town like Moscow and most small towns as well are not prepared for homicides and murders of this nature.
There's no kind of hey, this is going to be our official spokesperson for the whole case. So what you have is you have lots of, granted, officials that are pretty well in the know, but don't have the full details of the case, conflicting with each other or themselves based on new information. And that's kind of a problem whenever you're speaking the day after. You obviously don't have all the information necessary to make a statement. And so making a statement that early, whenever you're not the lead investigator with all the pieces, can cause some problems and mistrust in the local government.
Yes, and this is something that we've talked about before, but this is a common theme that we'll see throughout this investigation, especially early on, is that the police chief and mayor do backtrack a lot on their statements. The reason being, and I've told this to people before because people have asked me about that, is why does the police chief not know everything? The reason is because so much information does come. The police chief is not responsible for knowing everything. Mm-hmm. He's just handed information and that's what he goes off of.
Not only that, but even the lead investigator that does know everything may have a specific route that they are tracking that turns out to be false, and then they have to just pick another route. That's not always going to be a cut and dry, this is what I believe it is, therefore that's what it is. It is a sign of a good investigator to be able to switch tracks on what they think is happening, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. The next day, November 15th, backlash from the community. In another statement, police told the public this was an isolated, targeted attack, and there is no imminent threat to the community at large. Moscow residents, students, and victims' families complained about the limited and contradictory information being released by public officials. Again, this is the first kind of backlash that we get because there are retracting information constantly, but they're also trying to give the public what they need for information, as well as keeping some stuff close to their chest.
That way they're not giving the heads up to the person, that way he doesn't flee the country or something like that.
Exactly. And I think they've done a great job at holding what they need to, and I think as we go to a trial and we get to see some stuff come out, I think we'll see a lot of that.
Because at this point already people were concerned, like, hey, why do you guys not, do the cops really not know what's going on? But what I think was happening was they were trying to figure out how much information they could release without giving everything away.
Yeah. Wednesday, November 16th, new details emerge at a press conference Police Chief James Fry revealed to reporters for the first time that there were 2 female roommates at the home during the horrific attack, and they were unharmed. So it was a couple days later that we find out that 2 roommates did survive.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big point of contention for a long time. People didn't understand. There was lots of reports about neighbors hearing them screaming, and we're not sure how true those reports are. There's just a lot of misinformation coming out from people who think they know something versus people who actually know something versus people who are making stuff up for attention. And so it makes it hard to distinguish what's true and false whenever the cops themselves are releasing random bits of information slowly.
Yes. Fry did not identify the 911 caller or offer an explanation for the call. Coming in more than 8 hours after the slayings, there were no signs of forced entry that he adds to the statement. He walked back earlier assertions that the crime posed no ongoing danger to the community. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there, Fry said. We cannot stay. There is no threat to the community, and as we have stated, please stay vigilant. This is something that I was talking to you about, actually, is that it's the wording that police use, and the wording that they use here is please stay vigilant, and they continuously use that to today, and we'll catch up on our timeline, but they always have continued to state the please stay vigilant, because we think we're going in the right direction, but if we are wrong, just please stay aware, be vigilant of what's going on.
There is nothing wrong with having more information to give to the police. Yes. That is what he's asking for, is just keep an eye out. That's all. That's the best thing that the general public in the area can do.
He added that the FBI and the Idaho State Police are assisting in the investigation. So November 17th, coroner releases autopsy findings. So, okay, I was making sure I wasn't the only one that heard the hey.
Yeah.
The student's cause and manner of death were officially ruled homicide by stabbing in the press release issued by the coroner. She said the victims were likely ambushed in their sleep with a large knife, and each had multiple stab wounds. I actually have that coroner's report.
All right.
Right here.
Cool.
It basically just goes over each victim. So Ethan, Kaylee, Xana, Madison, their age, their biological sex, their hometowns, and then place of pronounced death is their residence. Cause of death was homicide, murder, manner of death, stabbing. And that was the official report released on November 17th. Some of the victims had defensive wounds, suggesting they awoke during the attack. There were no signs of sexual assault. So this is also very key, and this is something that I've brought up before, is what I think is very interesting is, from my understanding, I've never done it, but I've heard stabbing someone takes force to break skin, to go through skin, through muscle. If you would hit bone, whatever, that takes force.
Now, I would imagine if you hit, let's say, bones and organs, I imagine it takes a little more force, but just going through skin with a relatively sharp object is a lot easier than expected.
Yeah, but I'm saying you still have force to stab somebody.
Yes.
Because from my understanding now is a lot of these were around the chest, torso area.
Around the rib cage and stuff like that. That is
this
hard.
has like sturdy bones and cartilage and muscle and everything. So I mean, like, it takes force. And then now for a person to do this 4 times and also not wake anybody else in the house up.
We also have to keep in mind that they were partying until 1:30 in the morning with however much alcohol and however much drugs are in their system to begin with. So it is very feasible that someone could have been dying in the floor below them, and they wouldn't have thought anything of it. Not to mention the fact that the first 2 that were killed on that floor were a couple.
Yeah.
So
they were in the same room. Yeah.
Not to mention, if there was a commotion in a couple's room after a night of partying, I would have just tried to tune it out personally. You know what I mean? So
I just think it's really interesting, and they do say they have defensive wounds, so I'm really curious on what that entails, and we'll find out a little bit later, especially when this starts going to trial. We'll move forward. Friday, November 18th, police share a aerial map. Police released an aerial map plotting the final movements of our 4 victims from the ending of November 12th to the time of their murders. Police also asked the public to submit tips and surveillance footage. So that's what we have up here.
Is that where that gas station footage came from? Was after the...
Yeah, it will come. Okay. Yes. So Monday, November 21st, police dismissed potential connections between skinned dog and murderers. An Australian shepherd found skinned and filleted 3 weeks before the killings isn't related to the homicide, police say. Detectives also revealed for the first time that the dog, Murphy, was inside the home when the students were killed. So there was a dog inside the home.
Kaylee's dog, yep.
Yeah, Kaylee's dog was inside the home when the students were killed. The next day, the 22nd of November, the big question that everybody was talking about, and I remember hearing about this because this was a huge point of conversation, was, did Kaylee have a stalker? Police said in a police press release that they pursued hundreds of pieces of information related to this topic and have not been able to identify or verify the identity of a stalker. Detectives later said they looked into an incident in which a man had followed Kaylee around in a store in mid-October, but called it an isolated incident.
So they said, so basically they have no evidence of a stalker necessarily, but their wording there, whenever they say they have not been able to identify or verify the identity of a stalker, that doesn't mean that there is no stalker. That doesn't mean they didn't find evidence of a stalker. They're basically neither confirming nor denying whether there is a stalker at all.
Yeah, and sorry, you might not relate to this because you're in a relationship, but being a young male trying to approach a female, especially in a car, it's the fear of rejection is there. So I could get where, like, you try to talk to somebody at a party. I'm not saying that the store was necessarily the place to do it, but at a party, like if you're trying to go up to a girl and you're nervous, it kind of does look like you're stalking because like you're trying to prep yourself up to make that first interaction.
And the prepping yourself up to fight back that adrenaline of feeling of rejection is, I'm guessing it looks similar to an outside observer of somebody preparing to do something very bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just look weird and you give off a bad vibe.
Yeah.
But you also have to remember that these are people who they're kids. These are early 20s. So Friday, November 25th, nearby stabbings unrelated to Moscow quadruple homicide. So we start trying to make connections to
other
stabbings that happened in that area. In 1999, a double stabbing nearby in Washington and a 2021 double stabbing in Salem, Oregon do not appear to be connected to the King Road murders. We always look back at different murders in that area just to make connections. But especially, it sounds like these were unsolved murders as well.
Yes.
So that's why they're kind of like trying to check those off their list, making sure that there's not a serial killer out there targeting certain people. And this is also the police and the FBI building a profile. And this is very important, especially when it comes to their current arrest. So we're going to jump to November 29th. The vehicles were towed from the crime scene. 5 vehicles were towed from the King Road home to a city lot to be stored. They were previously searched and are still part of the crime scene, police say.
So they're still using them for evidence, or maybe there's little notes that are thrown out in there that may be important in the investigation. They still have no idea what is and isn't important at this point in time.
Yes. November 30th, police people are cleared as suspects. Hundreds gathered for a vigil at the University of Idaho, and the families of 3 of the 4 victims addressed the community in a heart-wrenching statements. Steve, Kaylee's father, revealed for the first time that she and Morgan were sleeping in the same bed when they were both stabbed. So I find that very interesting.
Wait, who?
Kaylee's father, Steve.
Kaylee and
Morgan.
So they were sleeping in the same bed. All right.
Meanwhile, the lack of coherent messages from the public officials sowed further confusion. The county prosecutor, Bill Thompson, said one of the victims was undoubtedly targeted in an interview.
Do we talk about? Can we go ahead and talk about that statement for a little bit? Do you have that planned sometime?
What statement?
That one of them was definitely targeted. The father stating that his daughter was explicitly targeted. Do you have that written down somewhere?
Yeah, we kind of go on this in the next couple ones.
Got it.
But that's another thing, and this is also Kaylee's father. Kaylee's father does make a couple statements during this time. I actually don't have it on the timeline because it was so weird and interesting. And we'll break it down right now, just because there's not much I could add to this except for not only did Kaylee's father make some statements, but so did the
coroner.
Not the coroner, but he made statements with the coroner, and that's where his statements come from. But I'm talking about statements coming from the prosecutor, Bill Thompson. And this is where confusion comes in, is that Bill Thompson does say that one of the victims was undoubtedly targeted, and that's a key word, undoubtedly. That means they had some evidence of that a certain individual victim was targeted.
Yes.
We never got what that was. And then Kaylee's father talked to the coroner, which I think is very interesting. And according to the coroner, or maybe that's how Steve took it, but he took it as hers was very more distinct and very aggressive compared to the other murders. Which
we're not going to get too much into the what the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner is, but a coroner there's very little there's not very much expertise that the coroner can bring to the medical examiner can't. The medical examiner is the one that would make determinations like that. The coroner isn't certified or have practice in making determinations like that and inferring what the different stab wounds mean.
Now, what I also find interesting, and this is something that we talked about earlier, is backtracking. Hours after Bill made this, Bill, the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, made this statement, hours later, he actually goes and backtracks and says that it was not officially deemed the murders being targeted.
Okay.
So it's basically, he went back and was like, I said that unofficially. Officially, we cannot say that they've been targeted. But that was just his
I'm guessing that was what his theory was, is one of the victims was targeted. It wasn't necessarily there was no evidence of that yet. Got it.
So December 1st, I'm going to read off a press release. I believe this is my 5-page press release. And the reason that this is so long is that this is the following information to update the public on the known facts surrounding the 4 murders that occurred on November 13th in Moscow, Idaho. Now, this is a police statement that was released to the press that I have right here. We're going to talk about this one, and this is something I wanted to write on. If you have my pen. Cool. So the reason I wanted to do this is because it breaks down some interesting information here. It goes down some of the stuff that we've already covered.
This is basically the first statement they should have made, in my honest opinion, to stop the confusion that came from the beginning of the contradicting statements.
Yes, and this is their step forward of clearing some of their backtracking up and just being like, as of now, it's almost a month later. It's the first. We're going to clear up some stuff. This is what we are publicly releasing. This is the information that you will get.
This is a more concerted and organized effort to inform the public rather than what their past attempts had been.
So, detectives were aware of a 6th person that was on the lease. Ethan was not on the lease, but the 6th person that was on the lease, they believe was not there at the time of the murders. Forensic scientists from the crime lab have worked on this case for weeks and have provided testing and analysis results to detectives. As they complete additional tests, those results will be provided to protect the investigators' integrity. Specific results will not be released at this time. We remain consistent in our beliefs that this was a targeted attack, but investigators have not concluded if the target was the residents or if it was the occupants. They go on to basically be like, any statements Bill Thomas made prior, again, was not fact.
Yes, that was unofficial. That was his own opinions, not necessarily.
Yeah, and they mentioned this in this as well. They also give out a tip line because at this point they had so much information being brought to them from the community, which is great to hear. And I love to hear that the community was so
eager to help.
And the reason that I'm super excited about that is because the moment we stop talking about stuff like this is the moment police go, cool, it's a cold case, and they close it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something we want, especially in something this big and this
quadruple homicide is a huge fucking thing.
Yeah. So to me, that's crazy. But they had a tip line that they set up through the FBI. So with FBI services, they were able to set all that up, which I think is pretty cool. Updated on the investigation, they kind of go and break down what everybody was doing the night of the murder.
What we've already talked about.
This goes back into our coroner report. There was no signs of any sexual assault, which is a big thing that I know a lot of people were asking about.
Yes, because
these were 3 of the 4 victims were female.
And it's very common in violent attacks like this for there to be some sort of sexual assault, whether
Ted
that's
Bundy, the co-ed killer, stuff like that. At this time in the investigation, detectives do not believe the following are involved in the crime. And I think that's really interesting in how they word that as well, is do not believe.
It's not cleared, but they do not believe.
Yeah. The 2 surviving roommates, a male in the grub truck surveillance video, a private party driver who took Kaylee and Madison home on November 13th. The male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early mornings hours of November 13th.
That was the ex, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or any individual at the residence when the 911 call was placed.
Okay.
Additional information released to this investigation. Currently, no suspects are in custody and no weapon has been located. On the night of the incident, officers located a dog at the residence. The dog was unharmed, turned over to animal services, and later released to a responsible party. Local businesses were contacted to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. Detectives seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to locate possible evidence. Governor Brad Little directed up to $1 million in state emergency funds for the ongoing investigation.
Holy shit.
So I thought that was very interesting, and something to note is that the governor was all like, this is such a big case.
We need this solved right now.
I'm putting $1 million from our emergency state funds to go towards this. And I think that's crazy. During the investigation, 113 pieces of physical evidence collected and taken to the ISP crime lab. Approximately 4,000 crime scene photographers taken. Photographs have been taken, developed multiple times, 3-dimensional scans of the residence. ISP forensic science scientists and technicians worked hundreds of hours, over 260 digital media submissions by community members to the FBI link. On November 29th, as part of the ongoing homicide investigation and original search warrant, detectives relocated 5 vehicles from within the police perimeter to a more secure long-term storage location to continue processing evidence. Rumor control. This is something that I also think is very interesting and very important, is that in this announcement, they actually go and cover some of the rumors, and they go, these are rumors, do not believe them.
Yeah.
One of those was the identity of the 911 caller has not been released. This is something that I think we've actually had arguments about that. Was it the neighbor? Was it the roommates? Was it one of the friends that they called over? We don't know. That was not released.
All we know is that
it was from a surviving member's phone number.
Yes, whether that be from inside the house or whether that be a neighbor. And we also know that the police do not believe that they were involved with the crime.
Yeah. There have been numerous media inquiries about the 1999 double stabbing in Washington and the 2021 double stabbing in Oregon. While these cases have similarities with the King Street homicides, there does not appear to be any evidence to support the causes are related. Detectives are aware that the county sheriff's office incident of the report of a skinned dog, but do not believe there is any evidence to support it is related to this incident. Detectives are also aware of Moscow police incident to report deceased animals left on the resident's property. This was determined to be wildlife activity and not related to the murders. Online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate.
Holy shit. That was a rumor that was going around at the time?
Yeah, that they were tied and gagged. Moscow police incident that occurred on September 12th, 2002 regarding an argument between a group of people walking on the University of Idaho bike path and a cyclist who displayed a folding knife is not connected to this incident. The individual involved turned himself in and charges were referred to the Moscow City Attorney's Office.
So that was a big one. The body cam footage from that incident was very heavily shared because of the proximity to this crime, correct?
No, I think you're talking about a different body cam footage.
Okay.
This was an incident on a bike path between some students and a bicyclist who pulled out a folding knife.
Okay.
There was rumors that he was the one who is possibly involved and could be a suspect. He heard about it and turned himself in and was like, hey, listen, I was the guy who argued with those the people walking the bike path. I did pull out my folding blade. I believe he's facing separate charges.
Like brandishing a weapon, stuff like that.
Yeah, but has been cleared of this.
Mm-hmm. And word of advice, a knife of that size typically is not a folding knife.
It is not a folding knife. The blade is longer than the handle. It's not a folding knife. Moscow Police Department's 4 detectives, 24 patrol officers. It breaks down who's involved. But
and just to give a kind of word of advice, I believe the town we're in has more detectives than Moscow Police Department, and we do not live in a big city.
Yeah. So that was the press statement from December 1st. Mm-hmm. Jumping to December 5th, the victim's father is concerned about police missteps. So Steve, Kaylee's father, told Fox Digital that the family was frustrated over the police lack of transparency and the progress of the investigation. Quote, there seems to be confusion everywhere you look, he said of the probe. It's just absurd, the kind of stuff that's going on right now. He expressed dismay over how quickly police had cleared many people as suspects and dismissed potential connections to other crimes. They've messed up 1,000,000 times, he said to the investigators.
Now, do you take that as anything more than an upset parent, in your opinion?
I take that as a upset parent, and the reason that I'm being is you just lost a child, mm-hmm. and you aren't getting information that you want.
Yes,
for reasons like this,
beyond your control.
For reasons like this, and for reasons of there's nothing you can do with the information that we have mm-hmm. that would help you, help the community, or help this investigation. And mainly, I would not give you this information because I don't want you doing anything that could potentially ruin our investigation.
Yes.
So he's upset that there's not transparency. He's upset that there's a lot of backtracking. He's upset that they're clearing so many people. And that term was also thrown around a lot. And I think we've talked about this as well, is that
the police,
the term cleared. Mm-hmm. They reporters and people keep using cleared, but that's not what the police say. Mm-hmm. The police are saying that these people are currently not a suspect at this time.
We do not believe that they are involved.
We do not believe they are involved. They are still on the radar. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, I think at this point in time, they can start clearing people, and they have cleared people.
But
at this point in time, at the beginning of December, they were not officially clearing people. They were just saying that we do not believe they're involved. Mm. We have reason to believe this or that, but they very rarely use the term cleared. And it wasn't until reporters started using that term of they cleared so-and-so and this person, and because cleared and we do not believe they are in connection, or at this time we do not believe. It's a very different power of those words.
Yes. And I believe that one of the things he said is they've dismissed things so quickly. He has no idea why they have dismissed either people or theories, or he doesn't, because he does not have access to the evidence, because they don't want him interfering with the investigation as a concerned parent. Because I'm sure, as a very upset parent with a murdered daughter, if you find out who did it, you might do some stupid stuff. You might
do some stupid stuff. You might entangle yourself in the investigation itself, and that's what ruins it, and that's how people get away.
Yep. And so, just to keep everything nice, smooth, and easy, they're just not informing him, and I understand why that would be upsetting to him, and I understand why that gives him the perception he has.
All right. December 7th, we're moving on a couple days later. And this is the first time that police are asking for information about a vehicle that was seen near the residence. It is this white Hyundai Elantra, believed to be between a 2011 and a 2013. Mm-hmm. So this is
the first time they've asked for specific tips other than just any sort of video footage along the way, correct?
Yeah. So this is first hit with about a Hyundai Elantra being coming forward, because this was put through to the tip line for the FBI, and they actually heard this quite a bit. Investigators believe the occupants of this vehicle may have critical information to share regarding this case, police said in a statement. Monday, December 12th, Steve, Kaylee's father, describes daughter's injuries and called police cowards. In an exclusive interview with Fox Digital News, Steve said the victims had big open gouges and called police cowards for not sharing more with the public. He said that his daughter's injuries definitely did not match the other victims.
Madison's wounds.
And they may have individually died from the exact same thing, being stabbed, but there are more details. They're even not close to matching, is what he was saying. And we talked about this earlier, but this is something that he goes and talks to the coroner. He doesn't have like I don't know. It just bugs me of how quickly he came out and was just like, these are different. And the words that he uses in his interview are like, they're not stabbings, they're slashings and gouges. And that's something that a coroner really isn't qualified to say.
No.
And that, especially with that kind of language.
Yeah. And now a stab, if somebody stabs while the victim is moving, it may look to the untrained eye like a gouge. So that's not something that a coroner should be judging.
Well, also, like, he used words in his interview like tearing and stuff like that, which you wouldn't use like,
with a sharp object like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like that. And that's not the words that you would use for being impaled. Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting of how quickly that came forward. So that family, along with their newly hired attorney, Shannon Gray, met with police and other officials in Moscow to share their concerns over the missteps in this investigation. So her family got together with a lawyer and went to the police and was like, hey, listen, we need some transparency here. We need some information. I do not believe we have any follow-up from that.
So my guess is, now that granted this is my guess, is that whenever they got transparency from the police, there actually was not nearly as many issues as what the family originally thought, and therefore stopped going public because they saw that what they were doing was only causing mistrust and not actually helping anybody. Now, granted, that is just an educated guess based on the information we have at the moment.
Yes. So, December 13th, we are now 1 month.
Exactly from
the murders. Cops pull hours of footage from gas station. So detectives collect 8 hours of surveillance video from a gas station in Moscow where a clerk saw a white sedan pass by at 3:45 a.m. on the morning of the murder. The clerk told Fox that she had been reviewing the tapes a little bit at a time over the past few days, looking for clues in her downtime. Police haven't commented on whether the white car is the same Hyundai Elantra they are seeking. December 18th, new video shows 2 victims with man before murders. Facebook group. I'm trying to just scan through this really quick.
A Facebook group that is investigating the murders shared a video with Fox News Digital showing the 2 with a strange man. The best friends were walking down in Moscow with a man who looks to be a student in a hoodie. Woman discussing someone named Adam, who is the family's lawyers.
Yeah. From my knowledge, Adam was also cleared from this as well.
Yes. As far as I'm aware, nothing ever came of that footage.
Yeah.
And that is the hard part about having it's amazing because we can piece together, the cops have all this information to piece together a timeline, but it's also like you have tons of just irrelevant information you have to sift through.
Which is also why they pulled in the FBI to help.
Yes, because 4 detectives is not nearly enough to handle all this information.
No, on December 27th, leaked images show victims inside local bar. So this is just of them in the local bar, hours in the early hours of November 13th. It appears that it was taken by a security camera inside the bar. It is a timestamp. If the timestamp is accurate, it would have been taken around 1:32. So probably minutes before they got to their car to go home.
Yep.
Friday, December 30th. So this is very recent. Friday, December 30th, suspect was arrested. Washington State University PhD student Brian, right here, was arrested in eastern Pennsylvania on an Idaho warrant, charging him with 4 counts of first-degree murder and felony burglary.
So I actually thought it was just he was arrested in connection with. I didn't realize they were arresting him and charging him. So they believe they have the evidence to take him to court.
Yes, they do believe. So a little bit about Brian here. He's 28, was studying at the college's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology in Washington, about 8 miles from the Kingman Road home where the victims were knifed to death. The FBI and local police arrested Brian at what appears to be his parents' home in a gated community,
Albrightsville,
Pennsylvania, according to police. So just right outside of Scranton. Scranton, PA, for any Office fans. A search warrant was executed Friday for his apartment. At a press conference announcing the break in the case, police said they had recovered a Hyundai Elantra, but did not confirm whether it belonged to Brian. Bill Thompson said the court documents outlining the details of the crime would remain sealed until Brian is extradited back to Idaho. Police also said that the plans to clean the King Road house and release the property back to the owner had been halted. The property owner of the Kingman Road house has been working with the police so far in the investigation, and had actually the police and the owner had assigned for that apartment to be cleaned that day and stopped. They called and were like, hey, don't go in there. It is still an active crime scene. We're not cleaning anything up. When they found out they were arresting Brian.
Okay, so I can see from the homeowner, he's like, hey, I know this thing is still going on, but can I go ahead and clean it up to get some new people in here? You know, that's technically he's still paying a mortgage. Technically, he's still paying property tax and stuff like that. Now, granted, I feel like a quadruple homicide, you know, people might not want to move in there at the moment. You know, that's kind of a
well, it wasn't even like from my understanding, it wasn't even the homeowner that wanted to clean it, because it is a murder investigation. You have a special cleaning crew that comes in to do it. They wanted to come clean it in because stuff rots,
it becomes harder and harder to clean.
It seeps in, but with that as well is you're cleaning evidence. So they stopped that process, which is very good. There was a police report. I was going over it. It's really just basically outlining what they're charging Brian with, which we just talked about, which is he's being charged with 4 attempts at first-degree homicide, and he's also being charged with burglary. So this is really interesting. This is kind of what we have so far. We know Brian was studying. What I think is so weird is what he has a PhD
in criminology and criminal justice.
Yeah, he was studying killers and stuff. And
well, actually, as someone who takes criminology and criminal justice, a lot of it is a lot more of like the menial shit for the most part. It's not like a law degree, you know, where you're learning like law and stuff, but you are learning the rights of individuals, the rights of officers, and how officers go about investigating stuff like that. Now, granted that I'm sure they're going to use big cases like Ted Bundy's case and stuff like that just to give people an idea of how what they're learning translates in the real,
how they build profiles and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, he's also taking other classes currently, and he's still going to school.
Well, not anymore.
Well, not anymore. Not currently. But now that we're all caught up, what I think is really interesting about this is that, are you aware that they terminated some of his social media accounts?
I was not aware of that.
So they did that because they found posts on Reddit where he goes and he's asking for people with violent crime history to sit down and like interview with him, because he's trying to build profiles, and he's trying to
under the guise of a school project, I'm guessing.
Under the guise of the school project is he wants to see in connections of what your mental state was, what the motives were, kind of thing. And those are Reddit posts. I heard that his Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that were also taken down.
Okay.
So I think that's very interesting.
So do you think he's trying to build himself a defense already? Do you think that's what he was doing?
I don't know if that's what he was doing, but I know that those stuff were taken down. I want to say the same day he was arrested.
Okay.
So I think the police are using that as not a motive, but as a
further evidence
to kind of build a profile on him of where he mentally is, because there has been a couple interviews that I've seen with like former FBI agents who worked years of building profiles who look at him and go, there is something off with his eyes. And it's not just his mugshot. There's other pictures of him and other videos of him where there's just something off with the eyes, and they talk about his movements and how he talks.
Yep. And now granted, that is all just based on a couple of seconds of footage or just a bunch of pictures. That's not actually sitting down and interviewing the guy and getting a good idea, but that's still from very very reputable people.
Yeah. So I just find that really interesting. I'm really curious to see where this goes. I want to know if the Hyundai Elantra is his, if it is a Hyundai Elantra, if it is the vehicle that we think it is.
And if it was the one that we think it is, was it a stolen vehicle or anything? I feel like if it was a stolen vehicle, they would have tagged Grand Theft Auto onto that list of crimes already, huh?
Yeah. And my other thing is, because he was arrested in Pennsylvania, between Idaho and Pennsylvania, there's so much, thousands of miles right there.
How much evidence was scattered along highways?
Well, they're looking for the murder weapon. Is the murder weapon still in the car? Did he try to keep it as a trophy?
My guess is if any person that was trying to get away with the crime would have thrown it away at a random dumpster in a gas station hundreds of miles away.
I wouldn't even say dumpster. If I was him, and knowing what I do with murderers and how crime scenes and stuff are worked, there's plenty of bodies of water between the Kingman house and his parents' house that I could have dumped this in, and with currents and stuff would have washed away and would never be found. Even
if they managed to find it, finding any usable fingerprints or DNA on there by the time they found it would have been impossible.
Useless, almost. So I think that's crazy. And it's really interesting to think of how this is going to go. I'm really curious once we get into the actual court and trial of everything, of what they actually have on him, because I know one of the main things they said was DNA, which kind of pushed it, but I'm like, I don't think DNA is all what they have. From my understanding is it seemed like they had a profile being made of him weeks before the arrest.
Oh, I'm guessing before they even sat down with that family's lawyer, that they basically had an idea of who it was and was just building a rock solid case.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing is we may not get answers for a little while because it takes a while for this stuff to get ready for court.
I can't believe you stopped while I was drinking. That's so awkward.
No,
anyway.
No, that's all I was going to say.
No, like things are going to be taking a while, and that's something that we got to be used to, but it's really interesting to see this in live time, and I'm really interested to see if is this our guy.
Yeah. Now, I don't think they would have, with all the video surveillance, with all of the random rumors that they were dispelling and stuff like that, I don't think they would have got him and charged him with 4 counts of murder and a count of burglary unless they were pretty certain.
Yeah.
Now, most of the time it's now granted there has been the occasional case, but most of the time people aren't charged until the police are 100% certain.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to see if this is our guy, if they did catch the right person. I want to know the motive. I want to know if we were close to what the murder weapon is, if he's going to confess at all, because I know that his first statements were basically of shock.
I can't believe this happened to me. No, it wasn't me. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
No. My guess is if he is the guy, if the cops have as much evidence as we assume they do, the lawyer, whoever his lawyer is going to be, is going to try and get some kind of guilty plea to try and get him off of the death sentence.
We'll see.
Well, does Idaho have the death sentence?
Yes, they do. It is on the table.
So I was going to say, with a quadruple homicide, depending on the motive and depending on the circumstances, that would probably go to a death sentence, would be my guess. So I
don't know. I honestly don't know how his lawyer is going to react, because he has a public defense lawyer.
Oh.
So he he does not have the money for an attorney. He is getting a court appointed lawyer.
Probably my guess would be going for a guilty plea for a life sentence rather than...
You'd assume that's what they would go for, but as of right now, like, it seems like they've been very adamant about his innocence.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been 2 days.
It has been 2 days.
So yeah, we don't really know. That's what we know so far, and we're not really going to know specifics or exact facts until, who knows, 6 months from now.
Yeah, we'll keep this up. We'll keep updating this. We might move some stuff in that time, but I hope you guys like what we're doing with the bunker. This is kind of what I want to do, not only just for ongoing crimes, but I would like to do stuff like this while we are talking about some whatever we're doing on our podcast. This is actually going to be our first straight to YouTube kind of thing. I'm super excited about that. I'm actually really excited for how this looks, because I mean, I think I did a pretty good job setting this up.
He did an amazing job.
Just to get you guys kind of an idea of where everything's going, is we have our victims, our house, floor layouts, weapons, aerial views, and this is something that I would like to do more of when we get back into it. Maybe breaking down some old cold cases would be really fun. I mean, I got Bigfoot over here behind Blackout. I got Mothman, the Menace, behind me.
Oh my god, he's no menace. He's a
he's a menace if I say he's a menace. So I'm actually very excited to continue this conversation. I'm going to be staying up to date on this as much as possible. I'll do probably short videos just to post on YouTube, just to be like, hey, this is information that we've got.
It would be nice to because shorts are a lot easier to just record and upload on your phone, to do little shorts updates, and then whenever a couple weeks go by, we come back and we talk about everything that has happened so far.
No, I agree. I think that would be great. Do you have anything else that you want to?
No, that's really it. I do think for a lot longer than what they were showing, that they did have an idea of what was going on, that they did have evidence that they were building against this guy. So that's basically my biggest takeaways. I think the FBI called in within a week or less, right? So they already had help immediately to be able to help get this taken care of. So I think it's going to turn out that, based on the information we have, I think that the cops did a good job and got their guy. And we'll just have to wait to find out for sure.
All right. So I'm excited to see what comes of this. Do you think we'll play this really quick to end this episode, or I wouldn't even say episode, but end this video, is let's do a 2023 bingo card. On your bingo card for this year, do you think we will get a break in this case? Do you think it will further in the trial? Do you think the trial will actually happen and finish by the end of this year?
I don't think we're going to get all the answers by the end of the year. Law system is really slow. Now, granted, the cops may have slammed it out of the park, and the lawyer's going to be just trying to get this plea bargain as soon as he can, so that he can avoid death sentence or whatever else. But I am in no position to be able to tell for certain. I'm going to guess it's going to take a long time.
What do you think will happen in 2023 for this case, though?
I think it's going to be a slow legal battle before it even gets to trial. My guess would be probably into trial by the end of the year, but I'm not sure if it'll be finished by the end of the year.
I think we will. I think by the end of the year it will go to trial. I also think by the end of this year we're going to get a confession.
I can believe that one.
That's what I'm hoping for. I would really hope for a confession. I would like to think in the next 6 months we're going to get a motive.
I would love that we get a confession, we get his full story sometime soon.
I agree. We'll see. We'll keep you guys updated as we are. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Remember, stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you next time, guys.
Adios.